Hello everyone, and welcome to this on-demand webinar, Building Better Housing, Helical Pile Foundations for Detached Homes. Thanks for taking the time to watch. My name is Keltie, and I am the sales guy here at Postech Moncton. We'll dive into things right away, but for those who may not be familiar with us, I wanted to give a quick introduction to our company. Postech Moncton is one of the largest installers of helical piles in the region, serving Moncton and area for over 14 years. Our team has supported countless projects ranging from residential to light commercial, located in all sorts of ground conditions. That includes providing helical pile foundations for modular, mini, and site-built homes. We have the capability to handle the design, engineering, and installation of helical pile foundations, which gives us a unique perspective on both the technology and the industry at large. And since we've been seeing an increased interest in using helical piles for housing applications, we wanted to create this presentation to shine a light on this interesting use case. If you have any questions about anything we cover in this video, please reach out to me at 506-857-9512, extension number 2, and I'd be glad to answer them. Now let's take a quick look at what we'll be talking about today. Over the next 25 minutes or so, we'll be exploring the essential information that builders, engineers, and contractors should know about how helical piles can be used in detached home construction. We'll start with a brief history and the core engineering principles behind helical piles, examining how they actually work. We'll then walk you through a typical installation process and what's involved with that. After, we'll dive into the heart of the topic today, specific helical pile applications for detached housing. This is where we'll cover everything from pier and beam configurations to full basements and ICF blocks. And finally, we'll show you a direct comparison of helical piles versus concrete piles, seeing how they stack up against each other. Our goal isn't to sell you on helical pile foundations. Rather, we want to show you how helical piles perform, the ways they solve common challenges, and why you'd consider them for your project, and when to use them. By the end, you'll have the knowledge to leverage helical piles to help build faster, easier, and with more confidence. If you're not familiar with helical piles, it's easy to think that they're a relatively modern innovation in the foundation space. In reality, they were first invented in the 1830s by an Irish civil engineer named Alexander Mitchell. For decades, they were used to support lighthouses, bridges, and waterfront piers in sandy and unstable soils. Of course, over the past 2 centuries, helical piles have seen extensive innovation and evolution, but the core principle and design has remained the same. What used to be a solution for difficult marine environments has become a widely used and reliable deep foundation system for residential, commercial, and industrial projects across the globe. So, how does a helical pile actually work? Let's break it down. A helical pile has 3 main components: a central steel shaft, 1 or more helix plates, and a pile cap that connects the pile to the structure. Broadly speaking, here's the primary functions of each of those components. The steel shaft transfers loads down into the helix plate. The helix plate both helps the pile advance into the ground and anchors the pile in the soil. The pile cap transitions from the helical foundation to your structure. Let's take a closer look at the helix plate, which is really the defining feature of a helical pile. The helix plate is manufactured by stamping donut-shaped blanks from a sheet of steel. It's then pressed into the specific helical shape. This is an important step, as the helix plate must have a specific geometry and pitch in order to create a helical pile. The shape of a helix plate enables it to cut through the soil as it advances down, making helical piles a type of displacement foundation. Instead of removing and replacing material, they simply push it out of the way. That eliminates the need for excavation or dealing with soil spoils. It's the pressure of the surrounding soil pushing on the top and bottom of the helix plate that enables the pile to anchor firmly in the ground. Plus, because the helix plate is comparatively wider than the pile shaft, a helical pile foundation is extremely resistant to frost and soil movement. There's a lot we could say about the technical aspects of a helical performance, but in the interest of time, we'll move on to looking at the installation process. However, if you're interested in diving further into that topic, we've written an extensive downloadable guide that takes a deeper look at it. Send me an email and I'll get a PDF copy over to you. Based on how a helical pile works, you're probably already getting an idea of what the installation process looks like. It starts with the equipment, and there's a wide variety of machines that can be used to put helical piles in the ground. This ranges from simple handheld devices all the way up to custom-built machines. But generally speaking, the most common solution is to use a compact excavator. They deliver great hydraulic power, are maneuverable, and can use their arm to reach all sorts of areas. The second piece of equipment required is something called a helical anchor drive. It's a hydraulic gear motor that delivers high torque and low speeds to rotate the piles through the ground. And really, that's pretty much all that's required to install a helical foundation. Compared to other foundation options, this minimal equipment is one of the reasons our customers like using helical piles. It's quite a bit easier and faster in terms of mobilization, and it causes no impact to the job site. Now, this next point is a really big one and a significant benefit of using helical piles. Like I mentioned earlier, the soil will exert pressure on a helical pile as it's installed. Firmer soil exerts more pressure, looser soil exerts less pressure. We can read this soil pressure in terms of the torque being applied on the pile during installation. By reading this torque, we're able to do something very powerful: predict the ultimate pile load capacity. Researchers and scientists first discovered in the 1970s that there's a correlation between the amount of torque applied to a helical pile and how much load capacity that pile will deliver. This has been extensively studied and proven many times in the decades since. That gives us, the installer, real-time insights into expected performance every single pile we put in the ground. We calculate the torque each pile will need to achieve during the design process, and then use those figures to judge when the foundation has been installed correctly. Now, in terms of actually installing a helical pile, it's a very straightforward process. First, we check to ensure pile locations are clearly marked, then we attach the lead section to the anchor drive and begin rotating it into the ground. A typical lead section is usually 7 to 10 feet in length. If the pile needs to go deeper, we'll attach extensions and continue advancing it. When the pile has reached proper embedment, we move on to the next one. After the piles are installed, we trim them to the correct elevation and attach the pile caps. You're now ready to build or set a home on the foundation. No cure time is required. Plus, because we don't have to perform excavation to install a helical pile, it eliminates soil spoils or site disturbance. After the install is done, we can also provide a piling report that indicates the final depth and torque for each pile. And really, that's all it takes to put a helical pile foundation in the ground. It's a quick, clean, and straightforward process. Now that you have an idea of how helical piles work, let's get into the core of our topic today. How can you use this foundation solution for the homes you build? As you might have already guessed, helical piles are highly versatile and readily to adapt to all types of foundation configurations. What I want to do is take a look at the most common designs: pier and beam, crawl space, basements, ICF, and concrete slabs, so you have an idea of how helical piles could apply to your projects. First up, let's take a look at pier and beam foundations. In this configuration, the helical piles are acting as the engineered piers to support the beams. After installing the piles to the correct depth and torque, they're connected directly to the beam, either with a bracket or flat plate. We have concrete pile adapters, which can transition to a poured concrete beam as well. Our team used this approach when installing helical piles to support concrete beams for a Jiffy Lube garage. Pier and beam can be a good approach for homes that are being built in a flood-prone area, as they can elevate the structure. Also useful for slope sites where you want to eliminate or at least minimize the need for excavation and grading. Next, let's take a look at crawl spaces. We can use helical piles to support a variety of crawl space types, from poured concrete to ICF blocks. They eliminate the need for a frost wall and footer, as the piles will transfer structural loads deep into supportive soil to prevent frost heave. This saves you time, site prep, excavation, and waiting for curing. Another thing to keep in mind is that if you're building in an area with soils prone to shrinking and swelling, helical piles will resist that ground movement. This ensures solid foundation performance over the long term with no sinking or shifting. Alright, pier and beam or crawl spaces are fine, but what if you're planning a full basement under the home? Whether it's going to be precast, poured on site, or insulated concrete forms, helical piles can support it. Now, one of the common concerns we hear when talking about using helical piles to support a full basement is the weight. Concrete is heavy. Plus, you have the rest of the home's structural load to consider. Can helical piles really handle a demanding project like that? The answer is yes. Helical piles are capable of supporting significant loads. It all comes down to choosing the right pile size for your structure. At Postech Moncton, we have a range of helical pile sizes to suit all kinds of loads, including heavy structures, like full custom homes. Okay, for the last one here, let's talk about concrete slabs. Going with a slab on grade is a common option for homes in our region, but of course, damage from frost heave is always a concern. The usual approach is to include a frost wall and footer, but helical piles offer an easy alternative. As I mentioned earlier, we have pile caps designed to transition to poured concrete. They have vertical studs that lock into the slab after it's poured, transferring the structural loads down to the soil. First, we install a grid of helical piles across the footprint of your slab. Then you can install rebar or mesh for reinforcement and tie those into the pile caps. After that, you simply pour your slab on top. This results in a slab that's supported by helical piles, not the ground. For projects on problematic soils or where slab movement cannot be tolerated, this is a great solution. So, how does all of this stack up against traditional poured concrete piles? I think the best way to frame this is from a project management perspective, because this is where the differences really impact your bottom line. Schedule. Depending on your project, a helical pile foundation can be installed and ready in a single day. There's no cure time required, and you can start building immediately. Concrete, on the other hand, is at least a 3 to 7 day process. You have to excavate, build forms, pour, then wait for it to cure. If you run into unexpected soil conditions or bad weather, you'll likely face delays. Weather. Speaking of weather, we can install helical piles in a wide range of conditions: rain, snow, cold, or mud. We'll still be able to put your foundation in the ground. Concrete is temperature and moisture sensitive, meaning a rainy day can halt your progress on your build. Site impact. There's no excavation required to install a helical pile. That means you won't have added spoils to manage, plus it keeps your job site tidier while greatly reducing site prep work. Concrete, on the other hand, means excavation, spoils, and heavy equipment. Verification. We monitor the torque on every pile that we install. Why does that matter? Thanks to an empirical relationship between torque and pile capacity, we can use that to verify pile performance in real time. This also allows us to rapidly respond to surprises in the soil. For example, let's say a geotech report indicated competent soil at 20 feet, but it missed the fact that competent soils in some locations weren't found until 35 feet. With helical piles, we'll know immediately that we're not getting torque at 20 feet. To fix, we simply add pile extensions until reaching the required torque. Total project costs. This is the big one. If you compare helical piles and concrete on a strictly cost materials basis, You might think helicals are more expensive. However, our clients find their total project cost is almost always lower with helical piles. Why? Because you can eliminate the risk variables like weather delays, concrete cure times, and extensive site prep, and unexpected soil conditions. You're effectively de-risking the project during a critical phase and ensuring predictability in your schedule. Okay, we've gone through a lot of information today, so let's recap. What are the key benefits of bringing helical piles into your next home build? 1. You get speed and predictability, allowing you to shorten your foundation schedule and get to framing faster. 2. You get engineered confidence, knowing you're building on a foundation with a known and verified capacity. 3. You get lasting performance, preventing long-term settlement issues that can lead to callbacks and a hit on your reputation. And finally, you get simplified projects with less excavation, less coordination, less logistics, and a cleaner, safer job site. The Postech advantage. Now, here's where I'm going to do a quick 30 seconds of self-promotion. Here at Postech Moncton, we've installed tens of thousands of piles over more than 14 years in business. Across all those piles and all those years, our goal has always been to bring a partnership approach to our clients' projects. That means we find the right solution for you, not the one that makes us the most money. I'd love to show you the benefits that helical piles can deliver to your home builds this year. If you have something in the works that's already spec'd on concrete, get in touch with me and let's take a look. We'll assemble a helical pile solution so you can contrast and compare. And with that, we're at the end of today's webinar. We've covered a lot of ground today, but if you take away just 3 things, I hope it's that. 1, helical piles are a proven engineered technology that offer verified performance. 2, they're incredibly versatile and can be adapted to any foundation configuration. 3, they offer a significant advantage in speed, cost predictability, and performance. Thank you very much for joining me on this webinar. I appreciate your time and interest in helical piles. If you have any questions at all and want to learn more or would like a foundation consult, you can get in touch with me, Keltie, at 506-857-9512, extension number 2. Thanks again for being here, and I hope you have a great day.